everybody, and welcome to the Maurice Brown Comedy Show on Bog Radio in association with 24 Flicks. Also, RadioQDX.com out of Lucama, North Carolina, and KCHF TV 11 out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. Good morning, everybody. We have a very special guest on the Maurice Brown Comedy Show this morning. This comedian combines clean, hilarious humor like no other comedian working today. Besides performing at corporate functions and fundraisers, he regularly appears on television, radio, and casinos across the country. He's been featured on America's Got Talent, Netflix, Amazon, Drybar Comedy, PureFlix, Mike Huckabee, Warner Brothers, Bananas, Apostles of Comedy, Thou Shalt Laugh, and numerous other networks and shows. He is currently on tour. Are we there yet? Hilarious comedy, no question about it. He drives home the humor in everyday family life, the ups and downs of marriage, the challenges of raising children, the joys of being a grandparent. You can catch him next in Palatka, Florida at the First Baptist Church at 7 p.m. on March the 15th. With no further ado, please welcome comedian Jeff Allen. What's up, Jeff?
Holy cow, what an intro. Wow. Hey, I apologize for this lack of backdrop. We had a flood in our basement back in October. We're still dealing with it. But at least I have a chair and a desk now.
Well, it's old school, Jeff. You got a chair and a desk. Just put some spit on that thing, man, and you're good to go.
That's it, man. What more do you need?
Man, dude, I watched your Drybar comedy special in Provo, Utah, and I'm sure a lot of the comedy on that particular show is on the Are We There Yet tour. But hilarious set you did there on your Drybar, and you were telling me that it was a big deal. And you've been doing great comedy for a long time, Jeff. You were saying the Drybar comedy special was a big deal for you.
It was huge. They had on their platform at the time, I never had heard of it. And it was funny because I was out on tour with Brad Upton the October, the year before. I was taped January. And I asked him, he had some really good success with Drybar. I had over 100 million hits, on the internet. I was completely blown away. I never heard of it. And anyway, he told me it changed his life. So I said to my wife, I said, I'm going to hire a social media guy and that I couldn't afford. It was more than my mortgage. And so I taped in January, and I asked him, when is this going to be released? And they said, it'll be about 6 to 8 months. And I went, gosh, now I got to pay for this 8 more months. And anyway, they called about a month later and said, we really like it. We're going to release like next March and in March. So to put it in perspective, I had no work that summer on my calendar. And by the end of April, my calendar was full. That's how the internet, when it goes viral. My wife kept looking at it every morning going, oh my gosh, it's up to 20 million, up to 40 million, up to, like, who's watching this stuff, But that's, what makes your career and breaks your career. When they cancel you, it goes just as viral. So,
Well,
but it blew me away. I had no clue
it's
who they were.
It's the society we live in now, Jeff. It's all about clicks. It's all about likes. It's all about views. I mean, it dictates tempo and entertainment in every phase of entertainment.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I did an interview, did 3 interviews actually in Huntsville, the comedy club there on the radio. And when I got back to the club that night, they said, you were the last ones. We're not buying any more heads on terrestrial radio anymore. It's all internet. And I thought, holy cow. I mean, things have changed. And as an artist, it's great because I missed, when I was coming up and I was living in New York and LA in the 80s, they had 4 people decided who saw comedy in America, and between HBO, Showtime, Tonight Show, and Letterman. And that was about it, really. Oh, yeah, HBO, yeah. And I did my auditions. I'm a storyteller. I don't know if you're familiar with the singer Harry Chapin,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
yeah, Harry was a storyteller, folk singer. He had a hard time getting his stuff on the radio because they wanted 90-second cuts. And his songs were 4 to 6 minutes, So it wasn't really until FM came along and was willing to play long form, the long stuff that he
Yeah.
connected. And I felt that was, my auditions, they're 5 minutes, this, you give you 5 minutes to do a set. And I do stories. So I'd hit maybe one, maybe two stories in 5 minutes. And they would say, we want more content, more topics covered.
Yeah.
And I go, then I got to break everything up, so it wasn't a good fit. But to be able to go on podcasts now and then be able to show my stuff like on Drybar where they show the complete stories and things, nothing's really cut, has really helped me out. It exposed me to millions of people who didn't even know I existed.
Well, and it's interesting you say that. Like I said, you've been doing comedy for a long time at a high level and in the Christian comedy world. And it's amazing that a special like this, it took maybe perhaps a special like this for, a whole lot more people to see it. However, Dry Bar Comedy is such a tremendous platform for clean comedians. I mean, it's huge. And if you can get a special on that particular platform, it can, if you're really good. I mean, if you're really a
Yeah.
good comedian, it can take you to the absolute next level. I think they're, you know, eh, listen, Jeff, let's just be honest. There are a lot of people that are doing Dry Bar, they are good, but, and it's going to help their careers tremendously. But if you're already really good, it's just a matter of people seeing you. It can really light a fire, and I guess
Yeah.
that's what's happened for you because your special is pretty darn awesome. As a matter of fact, I want our audience to get an idea of your special. I'm just going to play a minute or two of your
Oh,
routine done in Provo, Utah, for your Dry Bar comedy special. Ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Allen in action.
It is so nice to be in Utah, actually, and it's even nicer they dropped the charges and let me come back to your fine state. So it's always a good thing. Uh, about 8 or 9 years ago, my wife and I picked up my oldest boy at the Fort Campbell. He did 6 years. He served 6 years with the 101st Airborne, and thank you. So we pick him up and we're driving back. We live in Nashville. It's about an hour and a half drive. So we're driving back. And I asked my son, now that you're out of the military, you've had 6 years to think about it. What are your plans? And he said, well, I was kind of hoping I could move back home while I reacclimate to civilian life. I said, so you haven't thought about it, have you? He said, no. I said, all right. Well, you've earned it. Take all the time you need. 19 months into the acclimating process, my wife grabs me in the hall one afternoon. How long does it take to acclimate? I said, I don't know. I never had to. Go downstairs and talk to that boy. So I went downstairs. I politely asked my 26-year-old son, pause your video game. I need your full attention on this one. Mom and I were a little curious. Did the Army teach you a skill, something you can use to get employment and move out? I want you to understand something, young man. Your mother and I want grandchildren. We've earned grandchildren, and we worship a God of miracles. We believe out of 3 billion women on this planet, God has chosen one of those women for you to breed with. We just don't think she's going to fall through our vent and land in your lap down here in the basement. So did you learn anything? He thought about it. He said, I could kill you 6 ways with a popsicle stick. All right. You enjoy that video game, my man, and let Mom and I know when you're done doing that acclimating thing. So I run upstairs, and Tammy says to me, what'd he say? He said, get rid of the fudgesicles because he's going on a diet. That's what he said. Yeah.
Jeff,
yeah.
I love it. Jeff, I have a 27, 25-year-old kids, and I know the video, and a 22-year-old daughter. I know the video game deal. That's what kids do now. It's all about
Do you
video.
play? Do you play?
Well, I'm the bonehead that introduced my kids to video games, and then after a while, I just kind of, receded. But I had no idea, Jeff, that he would just become so attached to video games, and yeah, he just went to the next level, way
Yeah.
beyond me.
Yeah, it's funny, man. My wife and I finally broke down. We started with Mario Brothers, and the kids would go to school, and we wouldn't get out of our pajamas, and they'd come home, and we'd still be in our pajamas. And when we got through all the levels of Mario Brothers, I told her if we continue on this, we won't be able to function. We
No.
so we stopped. Didn't play, and the kids kept playing games, but we never. And then the other day when we were looking at stuff that flooded in the basement, she found some stuff, and she said, I've always enjoyed Mario Brothers. I said, I don't even think they make that anymore. I don't know. But when the grandkids come over, that's what they do at home. We just thought we'd give them something different, but that's really all they want to do. And I just want to spend time with my grandkids. So we're going to start playing video games again, I guess. I don't know. I don't understand the new ones, these where you walk your way through, and I don't know. I like where you shoot something, you get points for it.
I was down in Boca Raton doing comedy just before the pandemic, and there's a comedian on stage talking about playing video games. He said that he was playing up until about 6 o'clock in the morning. He didn't know who he was playing with, to have these little
Yeah.
mics that they talk to the person they're playing
Right.
against. And he said this kid was just destroying him, and the kid just finally said, "Mister, I gotta go. My mom says I gotta get ready for school." I mean, this is what the culture's done with kids, man. It's amazing.
There's a funny story. My son was in Iraq, and he was calling us once a week.
Yeah.
Let us know he's okay and everything's cool. And then it went by about a week and a half, almost 2 weeks. We didn't get a call from him. So my wife calls my other son and says, "Is Aaron online video games?" And he says, "Yeah, every night." She said, "What's his screen name?" So she got his screen name, everything signed on. And then she goes, "Aaron, this is mommy. Call me." And then all these guys from around the world were going, "Hey, mommy, how are you, mommy? Good to hear from you, mommy. Aaron, call your mom." So he calls like 8 minutes later. He says, "Don't ever do that again." She goes, "Don't ever go 2 weeks without calling me."
Oh man, I love it. I love it.
It's very
I
funny.
and we were talking about, your tour. Are we there yet? Tell our listeners out there about the tour and how they can maybe catch a show.
Well, it's based on the book. Are we there yet? My journey from a messed up to a meaningful life, and the
Okay.
the book is a memoir. The first half of the book is about my early recovery and what our marriage was like those first 7 or 8 years. And the
Okay.
last half of the book was, I committed my life to Christ. And the second half, I always tell audiences, if you can get through the first 6 chapters without killing yourself, it's actually an uplifting tale. You know, we
Okay.
shared warts and all. Tammy read the first 2 chapters of the book and put it down and said, "I can't read anymore. We were horrible people." I said, "That's the beauty of this relationship with Christ. We're not those people." Paul said, "When you're in Christ, you're a new creation." It's not.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, Andy Andrews, a friend of mine, wrote the foreword for me. He really nailed it. He said, in the foreword, you're going to meet 2 couples. Don't give up in the second couple because you don't like the first one. And when I was just on a cruise with Mike Huckabee, and I sold, I don't know, a case of books, and people were reading it. And there were women coming down the hall that were like in the middle of the book going, "I don't like you very much right now." So,
Wow.
but the tour is comedy. I mean, it is comedy. I mean, it's an hour and 15 to an hour and a half minute show, 90 minutes, and 85% of it is just straight up stand up, man. And then the last 10 or 15, I'll share a bit about the book, what we went through as a husband and wife, and then the 5 questions that I ask that I check every month in my own life. What defines me? What do I value? What are my expectations? What voices do I listen to? And where does my hope lie? And as long as I keep those in check and in line, I do pretty well as a husband, as a father, and those are the important things in life, being a husband and a father, and then it just seems to make me a better comedian if those things are in line. So we're in. I mentioned First Baptist Church in Palatka. We're in Tampa. The fun on Saturday, 4 o'clock show in Tampa. By the way, get them home before the babysitter hits the liquor cabinet. So, and then Sunday we're sold out in Naples already, so there's no tickets for that one. But it's going well, and really the book is getting some great reviews. Again, it's warts and all, man. We shared everything. I didn't want it to be, something that I glossed over. What kind of husband I was those first 7 or 8 years. It was not pretty. It also gives people hope. I hope it gives people hope that you're not locked into what your what circumstances are at this moment, and all things are possible through Christ. Anyway, that's the message give. But again, I just want to make people laugh. That's the goal. I always tell audiences, laugh releases endorphins. Endorphins are the body's natural morphine, which means it's the body's natural painkiller. So my goal is to get you stoned out of your gourds legally laughing. So if you get pulled over on the way home, the cop says you were weaving, you go, yeah, I'm a little messed up. I was laughing so much. My endorphins must have got me stoned here. So.
Yeah. It's all on my endorphins, officer. I'm really sorry, Jeff. I'll tell you, the special is really good on Drybar, and I'm sure a lot of it's going to be on the tour. Are We There Yet? You're talking about family, and it's amazing how it can be the game changer in a secular environment. I know I can pull from an experience I had prior to the pandemic doing a show with secular comedians. I was the only clean comedian on the bill, and there was a heckler there that was just horrible. And I said, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do with this person when I get up there. And she was just horrid. Anyway, I get started, and she stands up and comes to the front seat right in front of me. And I thought, I'm really going to get it. She didn't say a single word throughout my entire set. I was just talking about my wife and my kids.
Wow.
How my wife wants to be a part of the Marvel club. Me and my kids love Marvel, and first of all, she pronounces it marble, so she didn't have a chance to be in this club. Anyway, long story short, when it was over, this woman said, I want to appreciate you for talking about your family, because I'm in a situation where I'm being abused by my husband.
My.
Violently abused, and she was telling me how much of a difference it made for her just to watch me talk about that. And I thought, wow. Jeff, I said, man, you just never know, man, about being
you don't know what people are going through.
You don't know what they're going through, and your comedy special is very forthright and honest about your family experiences, which is hilarious. But it helps people,
Yeah, when I came out back during COVID, we were off for 5 months. I think I went back to work in August of 20, and clubs were at 25% capacity. And I just told my wife, I said, I got to get out and start working again.
Yeah,
I don't know what to do, So anyway, I had men coming over, and their wives would be going to the bathroom, and these guys would tear up, telling me it's the first time they heard their wife laugh in 2 years,
man,
or a year or whatever, and it's like I said, I can't imagine. I fell in love with my wife because of her laugh. She was a smoker 37 years ago. Smoker. When you can't get oxygen into your lungs, that is music to a comic, If people gagging in the back of the room, gasping for air, you're thinking, man, I'm doing well, So, and I couldn't imagine going that long without hearing my wife laugh, And she's the hardest audience I got to work for. You know that, man. Your wife has heard everything you got to say 10 times. So it's I got to work for laughs from her now. So
yeah.
But it warms my heart. She's laughing, man. warms my
Well,
heart.
that's what it's all about, Jeff. If you can please your wife with your comedy, you're killing it, and you killed that special without a doubt. We have a common friend by the name of June Colson in the comedy business.
Ah, I know June. I love Junie.
June's
She just
a
taped
very
for Drybar.
she did, and
She just taped it. Yeah,
so you're going to be doing a show with her in Paducah, Kentucky over the summer. Is that right?
I am. Yeah, yeah. In beautiful Paducah. You know?
So Jude, yeah, I had her on the show last week, and I've done a ton of shows with her on this platform, and it's great to see that you guys are going to be hooking up. And like you said, yeah, she just got done with her Drybar comedy here
Yes.
last week. I think she was out in Provo or 2 weeks ago, and she got it done. But we
prior to COVID, I used to have them over at the house on Monday nights once a month. A whole group of the younger comics, and COVID hit, and then we lost one to COVID, and I just thought that's it's anyway. They've been asking to get it back together, and I think maybe sometime this summer. I've just been so busy traveling that I just haven't had time to really do anything. I barely get to church on Sundays anymore. Watch it online, though.
That counts, Jeff. I mean, at least you're watching. You're going to be on tour at least until what, maybe September, October?
Oh my gosh, yeah, all year. I took a month off. This is the first time in my career that I called my manager in January and I said I want to take a month off in June. And I'm going to play some golf with some friends of mine I haven't seen in over 30 years. And I'm going to have the 4 grandkids. We're going to get the 4 grandkids for 2 weeks. We're going down to Orange Beach. We wanted to be near a beach so we can run them ragged all day and put them to bed at 8 o'clock. So
that'll do it.
Yeah, the beach will knock it out of them. That's what I say. So probably knock it out too. But anyway, I got down there with a good friend of mine, Andy Andrews, is going to take us out on a boat, and I don't know if I can make it. I get motion sickness, so I'm really a wimp when it comes to things like that. But anyway, I'm taking some time to enjoy with family that I haven't been in a position to do for years. So it's a good place. I'm looking forward to it. So we're going to Hawaii next week. My wife and I for Salem. It's a promotion for the book, and a couple of shows, and we're promoting the book out in Hawaii. So that'll be neat. Nifty.
I wanted to play a trailer from a comedy friend of mine by the name of Donnie the Entertainer Stopa. And
I know. Yeah.
He did this documentary called Comedy versus the Cancel Culture.
I remember that.
Yeah, you were part of this, and prayerfully, this will be on a platform very soon. He's in contract talks right now to get it on a platform. But I want to play the trailer and then come back and talk about comedy versus the cancel culture and stand up today. Stand by, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully we could get this thing to start operating for us. This is the Maurice Brown Comedy Show on Bog Radio.
Cancel culture. We're talking about censorship in comedy. Do you think that cancel culture exists in comedy?
Basically, in a nutshell.
Definitely feel like, as bizarre as it sounds, like there's a war on jokes right now.
Cancel culture, it's such a misdirected umbrella term. You can't police what is subjective.
Oh, wow! Like, you kind of have to live your life bulletproof now. You just have to.
Greatest night in the history of television.
You can't say an inappropriate joke that doesn't have the right context.
There's always going to be some sliver of cancel culture, of woke, of political correctness.
You're not funny, and this is how you have to do the joke, because I know how funny jokes work. That's not the joke.
I don't believe people get canceled. I believe that they have a shift in their audience.
Put your hands together for Mr. Joe Rogan!
When people say somebody is canceled, I think it just means, oh, we found they did or said something that most people don't like.
I date a lot of bimbos. That's the problem. Man.
So what?
So let's think about that joke in today's culture.
Let's think about that joke in today's culture, Jeff. What's your feeling about the comedy versus the cancel culture in 2024?
I don't know. I'm apparently, I either don't get on their radar or whatever I'm doing is not worthy of. I haven't been bothered. I get 6 emails a year. One of my standard lines in my show is if I do something and I'll just say, don't email me, just, it's a joke. Don't email me. And I think it's sad. I think we've raised the most humorless generation in the history of the country. And I think a lot of it is texting. I do this in my show where I say, there's a difference between saying, yeah, right, saying, yeah, right. And if you can't get that second one in a text, you don't get satire or sarcasm. What you get is a generation. I had a video flagged for violence, and it was on the Bactine. Remember Bactine? Yeah. So anyway, I said that hurts worse than the cut, or hurts. So your mother would come at you with the Bactine, and you go, I don't want it. I don't want it. He goes, well, your leg can get infected. So what? She goes, you could lose a leg. I got 2 legs, Mom. Don't worry about it. I don't want to. Anyway, I said to take my mind off the pain of the Bactine, before she squirt my wound, my mother would stab me in the eye with an ice pick. And this gets pulled off Instagram because of violence.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And you go, well, I'm so glad they're looking out for our benefit. I really am. I mean, are you kidding me? But that's the generation. And they're going to be the arbiters of what's acceptable for humor. Please. And the only way you get it out is just don't care. I don't care. I don't care what you think. I have a 3 or 4 rule. If I get 3 or 4 emails on a bit, I'll look at it because my goal is not to bother people or offend them. But, I had a guy accuse me of blasphemy. A Christian man accused me of blasphemy. That means something to me. So I wrote him back and I said, if you could point out where I was blasphemous, I'll take a look at it. And he couldn't. He wrote back. He goes, I don't really quite remember. And I said, there was another act up before me. Perhaps it was him that was blasphemous. I can't control the opening act too much. But anyway, again, I'll call and ask. I'm willing to look at what I do because, again, it's like with racial stuff. When I started in 1978, we all talked about the differences in the cultures. All of us. Every comic in Chicago talked about the blacks, the Hispanics, talked about the whites, everybody, because there was cultural differences. And it was the only test was it malicious? Americans are fair-minded people. They're not going to laugh at anything that's malicious with intent. So I don't care. These people, I really don't. I don't spend 5 minutes thinking about what I'm going to say or not say. I mean, I was at a fundraiser, not a fundraiser, but an appreciation show for a theater in West Palm, and I know they're far left. I know they are. So I was careful. I mean, so when they complained about my political, I said to my manager, I go, Lenny, I didn't do anything political.
Yeah.
And the bit that they called me out on was a cat bit. And I said, my wife went out and bought a cat. I said, are there no more free cats in America? Is this another supply chain issue? One more thing, far to China is our cat population.
Yeah.
So I said, what is there? A barge full of cats off of Long Beach Harbor can't get to shore because of another 30 government cat regulations. People screaming, free to cats, Buttigieg, we want our cats. That was the one. That was it. And I'm supposed to lie awake at night and think, boy, that was really wrong of me. get over it. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly,
Yeah.
get over it. And
Yeah,
if you think everybody out there walking around speaking words agrees with everything you say, how sad is your existence? I mean, we have friends of ours that they don't think Castro went far enough. That's how far left they are. And we get along fine. We just don't, they're not going to change my mind. I'm not going to change their mind. But everything else in our life, we love each other. We love each other. And we would take a bullet for each other. We just don't vote the same.
Yeah.
And I mean, and it goes in those 5 questions I brought up earlier. Where does your hope lie? If it's in the next election, I pity you. I really do.
Yeah.
If you're lying awake at night worrying about who gets into the White House, that's sad because it's out of your control. It's out of your control. You have the money or the power or the influence to change that. You got to vote, go vote, and then go out and have some Rocky Road and a Dr. Pepper, and enjoy your life. Look around you, man. You got people in your life that love you. You hope you do. And, if your brain is just constantly focused on what the culture's doing and everything, I was there. I mean, I know what I'm talking about. I was there in the 90s. My head was so not present. I mean, there was a point where I said something to Tam. I was projecting 15, 20 years down the road. And I said, if that's my life, I'm checking out. And she looked at me and said, you checked out years ago. You're not even here now. And she was right. In the middle of a conversation, I was thinking about something else.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just so the cancel culture is, I think it's on the way out. I think Ricky Gervais threw the gauntlet down at the Golden Globes that year when he called Hollywood out. Half of you had barely got through high school, and you're going to tell us about geopolitical. Please stop.
Yeah. It's I hope it is on the way out. I think it's probably right now, as we talk about stand-up comedy, more difficult than ever before to not offend. Whether it doesn't matter if you're clean or not. People just get upset over anything.
Well, they do. It's funny. When I started in the church years ago, I remember I was coming out of all these casinos and nightclubs and stuff. I'm a brand believer. So I called a friend of mine up who was pretty steeped in the Christian marketplace. And he said, I'm worried about offending, my first church. And he goes, if your lips are moving and words are coming out, you're going to offend somebody, And he said, there'll be people who will just come to your show for no other reason to be enraged and offended. So, you got to live with yourself. You got to get on your knees at night and ask God, did I honor you today? I mean, again, if I'm deliberately malicious at one of his creatures, then it's up to me to think about that. I don't know. I don't. Yeah. And again, to me, it's a heart thing. People ask what changed in my comedy after becoming a Christian. I said, it was the heart was different. I wasn't vicious. I was vicious prior to that, and I had female club owners that didn't want to hire me because of the way I talked about Tammy.
Yeah.
And the only thing that changed really wasn't the words I was saying. It was just the heart that was delivering them, And when I first did a Gaither event, it's very funny. My first big event at a convention center, and the next day they take me off to the side and they say, hey man, when you're working today, could you mention you love your wife? And I said, they don't know that? And he said, well, you hit her kind of hard. And I'm thinking, you have no idea, So I go up and I do my set and I'm leaving the stage. And I remember I forgot to tell him I love my wife. So I go back and I start talking about what a beautiful woman God gave me and wonderful. I mean, amazing that she stuck with me all these years. And I start crying.
Yeah.
Maurice, I'm telling you, I start crying. I mean, I walk off and Tammy's standing there. She goes, what the heck was that? I said, I don't know. Something came over me. But it was like, yeah, I didn't realize that, one, talking about her in that way would be so emotional. And two, I didn't realize that there were people out there that didn't know I loved her. At that point,
Well,
I mean,
it,
yeah. And
I think it's
they
pretty
always
awesome.
ask, is she aware of the way you? No, she thinks I'm a bricklayer. She's completely unaware of what I do. Yeah.
Well, I love it, Jeff. I think that you and your wife have a special relationship because the comedy that you share about Tammy. I also think it's really bad when people presuppose that you're bashing your wife. Well, my goodness, this is the man's wife. Obviously, they're good with whatever he's talking about up there. So,
Right.
love, I don't think there's a question here about that. It's his
Right.
wife, please, people,
Right.
please. Anyway, that
Yeah.
being said, you're saying these things, and I have a comedy friend by the name of Nikita B. And she's always said, never talk about stuff that's hard, brazen, or close to the wall unless you've reconciled through that. But you know what I mean? It's like
Right.
if you once you've processed through it completely, then you can get up there on stage and talk about it. So I said all that to say, clearly, Jeff, you and your wife have processed through everything that you talk about up there, man.
It's all not going anywhere. You can dump me and get remarried, but I'm still going to be living here.
Yeah.
I'm not going
I
anywhere.
love it. I love it, ladies and
Yeah, and
gentlemen.
again, it helps when you walk on stage and say we've been married 37 years. So I mean,
Oh man, it should.
yeah,
But
I
again,
mean,
it goes back, Jeff, to people not thinking. It's like you said something very interesting about this may be the most humorless generation in the
Yeah.
history of America because
It
no
is.
one seems to be able to watch a comic without getting upset about something. And,
Well,
and
they take
so,
it so literally. They
yeah,
they do not get satire. They don't
yeah,
get sarcasm. They don't get nuance at all. And I think that's just the constant texting back and forth. My manager and I have had some go arounds because he'll send me texts.
yeah,
And I'll call him up and go, "What do you mean by that?" He goes, "What are you talking about?" I go, "Did you read what you sent me?"
yeah.
And he read it and he goes, "What?" And I go, "That's pretty harsh." He goes, "I didn't mean it that way." I go, "Next time call me. I can hear your voice."
Well,
And
yeah. And Jeff, that's a great point you make about the texting generation that we live in. People have
yeah,
lost or are losing the ability to have a normal conversation because they're always texting. And
right.
texting does not evoke what you're actually saying a lot of times.
Not at
And
all. Not at all. You
you know,
can
yeah,
again. There's so many things that are sensed in a tone, in a voice, in a pause. That it's all in the context of what you're saying. And I mean, it's frightening how humorless these kids are. And running social media.
yeah.
They're the ones that
They're
are
running social media.
supposedly fact checking, and I mean, I saw a guy make a joke about something. I mean, it was so absurd. It was the equivalent of somebody jumped off a building and smashed to the ground and hopped up and walked to the car, and they would go, "Well, nobody could survive a fall like that. This is
Yeah,
not true."
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, and you read some of these, the comments, and I that makes me laugh harder than the guy that made the joke. Is a comment from the Instagram people, or uh, not getting the joke,
Yeah.
taking it literally and telling us don't believe this. This isn't true. And I go, well, it was a joke. We understand that. We really do. We're adults. We've gotten this far in life, but I don't know what it means going forward. I really don't. But I think comedy's in great shape, man. What Rogan's doing down in Austin at
Yeah.
his club. And I think there's a bunch of fearless guys coming out. And, in the 70s, I thought produced some of the best comedy ever because
Yeah.
it was coming out
Absolutely.
of the 50s and 60s mores where society said, you can't do this, you can't do that. And they created these boxes. And Carlin, Pryor, they just busted out of those boxes, man, and pushed back
Yeah.
against that, and rightfully so. So what you're gonna get is, I think, in the next decade, you're gonna see some really, really good comedy, and coming back. Hopefully, I'm a little worried about where the government's headed with the censorship and stuff. I'm hoping that the people push back against that hard and really embrace the First Amendment and just let people say what they need to say and
Yeah.
and get over it and shut it off, move to another channel, whatever. But it's not enough for a lot of people to just disagree with someone. They got to silence people, and that's frightening because that's historically that never ends well for the general population.
Historically, Jeff, that never ends well. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Maurice Brown Comedy Show, talking with comedian Jeff Allen and talking about comedy and his current Are We There Yet tour. You can next catch Jeff in Palatka, Florida at the First Baptist Church at 7 p.m. But he's going to be on tour into September and October. If you want to know more about how, when, and where to catch Jeff, go to his website, jeffallencomedy.com. Jeff, I want to ask you a question. I'd be interested in hearing your response to this. This has been a conversation a lot of comedians have been having, Christian comedians have been having, at least in the circles that I swim in, and that's this. Is there, in your mind, Jeff, a difference between Christian comedy and clean comedy?
No, I know what Christian comedy is. Other than delivered by Christians. It's like, to me, Christian music isn't, the notes they're no different than what Eric Clapton played, So
yeah.
The lyrical content, again, corporations like boxes. They like to be able to promote things in a box so that people can, but I don't, it's interesting. Brian Regan works clean. And somebody, I saw an interview where somebody asked him, he says, it's just worked for me. It had nothing to do with faith, nothing to do with anything. And it didn't with me. I didn't start working clean because of my faith. My son got caught cussing at school, said some really nasty things to his teacher. And we went in there and she told me what he said. And I said, I'd love to be able to look you in the eye and seriously tell you I have no idea where that child heard that kind of language. But
yeah.
And so driving home that night, that afternoon, Tammy, that's a reflection on us.
Yeah.
So I said, I need to change at home to be an example to my children. And I am a quarter for every cuss word that came out of my mouth, and pretty much how I funded their college. Anyway. So anyway, I wondered after that if it would work in a club. I said to myself, gee, I wonder if I can work clean. That's interesting. And it made me a better comedian. It made me a better storyteller to get a thesaurus out and work the language and then create a different way of saying things. There's only so many things you can talk about without losing an audience. And so you better come up with a different way of saying the same thing, basically what it is. Yeah. So anyway, it really helped me out. But and then I came to my faith a couple years later. But by then I had already been working fairly clean.
Yeah.
But so there wasn't anything Christian about me cleaning up. It was more as a father to my son. And then, did God hand in? I believe he did. I believe it was, in hindsight, there were a lot of changes going about in me in that 2-year period. It ultimately made sense when I became a believer.
Sure.
But, I don't think what I do in the church, or I did a lot, was testimony. And I felt that was more an honoring to what they were paying me out of tithes and offerings from their body.
Yeah.
And what am I offering them besides comedy? And comedy's enough. Sometimes pastors would come to me and go, look, we just want to laugh. We don't really need your testimony. We just want to come and laugh, but offer as a form of ministry to them. And I got hired a lot of times just for the testimony.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
And that's what they wanted. So that's different, obviously. But when I'm in a club, I take a few minutes at the end of the show. I talk about the book. I talk about my relationship with Christ. And, and I ask people, if you're lost, got a lot of questions, and you can ask them in our culture today. You get caught asking these questions at work and somebody overhears you, you could lose your job.
Yeah.
You could lose your job for asking about Christ. You cannot lose your job if you mentioned that anyway, I don't want to get into it, but there's a double standard in the culture for sure. And so anyway, the church is a place to go and ask those questions. And if you're
Yes.
in a church and you have questions, and they tell you don't ask questions, find another church. If they think God is so small that he can't answer any question I got to come up with, then I don't want to be in that church. I want to be in a church that knows God knows my heart. He knows my doubts. He knows my skepticism.
Yeah.
And he still loves me and still walks me, So, but so clean and Christian, I don't know. They asked Jeff Foxworthy, who's a Christian. He said, I'm a comic that happens to be Christian. I don't care. You call it whatever you want. I'm not ashamed of my faith by any stretch, because you didn't know me prior to that, and you wouldn't have let me in the room prior to that.
Right.
So, I'm okay with it. And again, I can handle. I get the people mocking me online. Okay, that's all you got. I always ask people. I go, "What is your goal?" I mean, calling me a nasty name. I mean, if you're trying to change my heart and mind, you're going about it the wrong way. I think. I don't know. Maybe that works for you with other people, but calling me an a-hole just doesn't seem to, to draw me closer to you as wanting to be a friend. I don't know.
Yeah,
So,
I don't think that's going to endear a friendship there. That's for sure. That can't be the goal.
Not at all. Not at all. And again, that's what a lot of them. That's all they have. They just shout and shout and shout until you get bored and walk away. They've been taught that. My second grade granddaughter, during COVID, we had her for 3 weeks. My son was moving. And second grade, they had her writing letters to the editor. And I looked at Tammy and said, they're raising activists. That's all they are.
Yeah.
Who writes a letter to the editor? She didn't even know what an editor was. And they didn't care about the content. The point was you write letters to the editor.
Yeah.
So when the time comes and you have something you think you need to say, don't even hesitate to write the editor.
Sure.
Because you've been doing it since second grade. And it's scary. I mean, it really is. I mean, when you see people on the street embrace Gaza and Hamas, and they're in the LGBTQ community, you really want to walk over and go, do you even know how short your life would be?
They have
Gaza
no idea, Jeff. They have
I know. That's the point. I mean, it's like, take a breath, step back before you make a jerk out of yourself. I mean, thoughtful people you should think before you hit the streets. I think. I don't know. I don't go to the streets. I'm too lazy, and I also don't think that there's anything that I'm going to do by running around with a sign.
Well, Jeff, dude, I could talk to you for hours, because that lane that you just went into there, I could go on a 20-minute soliloquy, but I won't. I will say this though, because you've been doing comedy for quite a while, and I do want to emphasize on a high level. I want to ask you this. What's the biggest thing in stand-up comedy for you that you have learned, whether it's been in a conversation with an older comedian, a younger comedian, something you saw a comedian go through on stage and respond to, or even yourself, or just a group of comedians just having a conversation about stand-up? What's the biggest thing that you've learned after all these years that's made you better at comedy?
Oh, wow. I don't know if it was so much, it's just something I've observed, that the best comics are craftsmen, love the craft of stand-up comedy.
Okay.
You can become famous as a comedian without really being a craftsman. You can just hit the right tone, especially with the internet the way it is. You get a good bit, you can get a good 4-minute thing that goes viral, and you could get out there. I respect the guys that love the craft and they work at it. There's a comic named Dusty Slay who's really starting to take off. Just did his first Netflix special, and I remember seeing him in Nashville when he was just working out. And I heard he drove to Michigan for $50 to do a set. And I told my wife, this kid's going to be successful because it's all about the work for him. He just wants to work. And it isn't about anything else other than the craft of stand-up comedy. And sure enough, man, that kid he's taken off, and he's a good kid. But again, I just respect people who work the craft of stand-up comedy. And I always say this, and I'll say it till I go to the grave. If I'm as good as I'm going to get, then I should quit, because I just did a new Drybar special, and it was the hardest one I've had to do. It was hard putting together 30 minutes, and it wasn't so much the material as it was structuring. I don't know how you write, but I work as much on segues. I want things to flow.
Yes.
I don't want to do a car bit and then go and spin my wife, and I wanted to kind of one thing lead into another. And that was the hard part of putting that set together. So much fun, because I told Tammy, I said, I haven't had to work this hard putting a set together, because I'm pretty locked into how my process works. I mean, after all these years, I kind of know what's going to work for me, what isn't. But I'm still, that set in another 4 months is going to be so much better than what airs on Drybar, because it's really, I'm taking things out, I'm putting things in, and when you get one that works, man, I came up with I was talking about us arguing, and I said, we're at a point in our marriage now where my wife says it all with an eye roll and a sigh, that's it. And I used to say, what did you just say? And she'd go, nothing, which was true. She said nothing. So I learned to ask the right question is, what were you thinking about? Because it's the thought that creates the eye roll and the sigh.
Yes.
And then she looked at me and she says, you really want to know? And I go, well, that's why I asked. She goes, you want the truth? I go, no, lie to me. I mean, what were you thinking about? She goes, I hate those pants. I said, these are the ones you got me for Christmas. And she said, yeah, I made a mistake. They look so good on mannequin. And when I first delivered that and I got the laugh, I told Tammy, I said, made my whole night, just that one line. And then it goes on to where she throws them out. And then I discover them in the trash can, and I come in the house. I go, you threw my quilty pants? And she goes, I told you I was sick of looking at them. And then it dawns on me, I've been missing clothes for 15 years. I said, you've been throwing out. She's been gaslighting me for 15 years. She's been telling me, probably left them in a hotel room. She's been pitching them. And I go, my MC Hammer pant, you threw my hands. She goes, no, those were burned. You burned my Hammer pants? She said, no, you burned them. I just put them under the leaves. So to put that together, well, as a comic, you go, and it all kind of fell into place, and I delivered it, and I was like a kid again. I was a little kid. I would wait just with anticipation in my head till that part of the show came up, because I was so happy to deliver that stuff, because it was just brand new, and I finally figured out where it fit into the set, and just it was so much fun doing that.
I love it.
But and again, it's just I love the process of stand-up, and I said when you lose that, then you're just waiting to retire,
Pretty much. And I think that's a great response. I love asking comedians that question, because everyone has a process. And it took my wife to get me to understand you have to get your segues right, because you're all over the place. You're talking about thugs here, you're talking about grandmas over here, you're talking about this, that. Yes, just kind of you need to get some form to your comedy. So, and that's something that
I think Leno said it. You can't take an audience on a journey if you don't know where it's going.
Exactly that. And so yes,
I used to bring notes up, but now I'm bringing them up. And I started doing it. I used to do it years and years ago, mainly because I was drinking and I couldn't remember much, and I'd have it on a napkin, and I quit doing it. And Tammy had said to me, she goes, you really need to bring some notes up so you can work your new stuff. And I would leave it to memory, and I'd forget. I remember the first, fourth, and fifth line, or I'd remember, So anyway, I started bringing notes up, and I tell the audience straight up. I go, working on stuff. I'm not. I used to try to hide it from you. I'm not anymore because I don't care. I'm at a point where I'm just, old enough to. I just let you know. I'll be glancing at these notes, so I'm not trying to hide it from you. But 95% of it is stuck in my head somewhere. My biggest fear is at the end of my life, that's all I can remember is my act. I'm on my deathbed. On my deathbed doing bits for my children. They're looking at me. What are you talking about, Papa? What are you talking about, Papa? What's a Volkswagen?
Well, Jeff, listen, thank you so much for being on the show this morning, man. I appreciate you stopping by. This has been a great conversation, and I could go on and on talking comedy with you, my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to the Maurice Brown Comedy Show with comedian Jeff Allen, who's currently on tour. Are We There Yet? And you can find out more information on how you might be able to catch Jeff at jeffallencomedy.com. So with that being said, Jeff, thank you once again for being on the show, being on Bog Radio. Also want to thank RadioQDX.com and KCHF TV 11. Thank you so much, Jeff, for being on the show. Hopefully we can talk again, and may the peace of Christ be with you and your family. God bless you.
Right back at you, man. God bless you.
Amen.